Welcome to the Rogue Frontier podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest, Kiley Hammond. Kiley is one of my good friends. He's a rancher. He's a born-again Christian who's mentored me in the area of Christianity. And today we're going to talk about ranching and Christianity. With this subject, I've been very much looking forward to this podcast. So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. So Kiley, why don't you just introduce yourself?
I native of Nebraska, been in Wyoming about 8 years, I guess now. Always in the livestock business, a little more sale barns, order buying. I've bought for packers for a number of years too. Currently, I manage a small cattle and horse operation near Cody, Wyoming. Married just for a brief while. And divorced a number of years, and just stay active around the circles of still buying and selling.
So what do you think of the idea that so many people in the ranching world are Christian? Is that just because Christian faith is so prevalent in the United States? Do you think that livestock and ranching have something to do with Christianity? What's your impression of that?
I think anybody that works with the land, even if it's farming or ranching or anything in agriculture, I think it's an easy avenue that they can both, especially if you kind of church outdoors and see the beauty of nature and maybe the harshness of storms, and they overlap so much, rebirth in the spring, mm-hmm. calving, and harvest in the fall. I mean, it's almost a job that probably streamlines or works with Scripture more than any other job that you can almost think of. And I'm going to tell you what, I'll tell your listeners out there. In many ways, if somebody's pulling up their chair and thinking, boy, I'm going to get a good sermon from this guy, it's I am a very much still practicing Christian. As far as it was on me about 7 years ago, almost 8, and that hasn't changed. Like I said, I'll start at this part of the deal, and I was not reluctant to talk with you much on here, but I thought, boy, if you're looking for like a guy that's got these great Christian bang, that's not me, because I'm still working at it. I think I have a common sense to a lot of it, but great Christian upbringing. All my grandmothers and everything, brought me up right. I had, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. I had a basis of memorized the different books in the Bible and so forth, but really didn't have a personal walk with anybody, with Jesus or anything. And I've kind of put this together over a few years. I started driving a pickup down county roads when I was 9, and I taught myself to ride a bike, taught myself to shoot a gun. And it wasn't that I was alone or I had great men in my life that as a kid, I guess I was trusted to not do something bad with the BB gun. Don't shoot out the windows. Here you go. Everybody's busy.
Don't shoot somebody's eye out.
Sure. And so I was always mature as a kid. So 9 driving. And when I was 12 years old, I was just thinking this the other day, I was delivering cattle in the big truck, my granddad's big truck. I was 12 delivering cattle for him. He bought. And I worked, and that needed done. And, and that wasn't just, I'd gone 80, 90 mile trips.
Wow. At
12 years old, drive through Grand Island, Nebraska. And I remember, I wasn't worried about it because he wasn't worried about it. That's kind of how I come up. And I remember my grandma saying it's kind of squawking at him, what are you going to do if he gets pulled over? Now, nobody doubted that I couldn't drive the truck because I'd already been doing it. And I remember him saying, what are you going to do? And I kind of thought to myself, what am I going to do? I'm not 16, I'm 12. And I remember him saying that, he said, well, if you get pulled over, you tell him that you're working for me. And it wasn't his name, but we're doing things. Mm-hmm. So to heck with your, just at 16, I've got him doing this, and this is more important. And to tell everybody that this is because somewhere along the lines, no matter my Christian upbringing, but teaching yourself to shoot, making things happen. A lot of people doted on me that I could work like a man. That when I was young, and somewhere in there, myself got to be more important. Not that I was like a selfish, or I'm sure I was to degrees, and I'm sure there was some ego that was with that. And it wasn't like I was a monster, but
you were confident.
How I come up, the only way anything that could get done is if I had to do it. Okay. And we have so much control on everything. And if it doesn't happen if we don't do it. So
it doesn't happen right if you're not involved.
Yes. Okay. And there were different times that I wanted some kind of connection in faith. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't get it just from reading and being told. And I can remember being in a pickle, and whether I had a note due Monday or I had some kind of big event come up, and it sounds so silly, but the only time I had any time for Jesus in my life was when I needed out of a jam. And I was trying to trade him. Like, God, if you want me to believe, and all these people want me to believe, then let's make this go away for me type thing.
Let's negotiate.
I met him on my time. And of course that's never gonna, manifest that way.
That's right.
And going along with this, what happened is I was getting close, and I was kind of getting past the just needing out of a pickle type conversations or prayer or anything like that, or seeking God. And I was close enough that and there was a lot of signs. I would have more and more kind of good Christian men around me. When I was not anymore living at home, I was living up by Yankton, South Dakota.
Were you causing yourself trouble? Like, was there
I think so.
Willfulness that, like, God's going to get me out of this even if I do something really stupid?
I don't know. I think I would gripe at God when I would give him these little things like make this trouble go away and see you don't really want me, and that's kind of that teenager attitude that we're gonna we'll put up some condition, and then when that isn't met, then God doesn't love me. God loves everybody but me, and that's just us being terrible. And but I had these more and more Christian men in my life when it was getting closer to this, and I remember going around and asking them, when did you know? Because most of them were born again.
Oh,
okay. One wasn't, and he had a kind of a hard time with. I don't know where to put it, because when he described his faith to me, he always had it his whole life and never questioned it. Bless his heart. I wish that it was that easy for me. And other guys would say, well, then this, and I did that. And I think there's life events that prep us, at least for. Well, I think men and women, but I was kind of getting out of debt, but I was newly married, and the career didn't change much. Some of the jobs did. My marriage wasn't good, and I think that we're kind of spiraling and don't know it. And but I remember asking, when did you know, or when were you? And when I said when it was on me, is that I came out here to Wyoming. It was on this very place, and I was just, I guess to put it this way, I had been estranged from my wife for some time, and I was kind of using the divorce as wanting a divorce was I was weaponizing that, when we weren't getting along. Let's get a divorce. And then when she granted me one, or said, okay, we will, and then that night I was just woke right up out of my sleep, and something had a hold of me, and I don't get anxiety, and I don't have panic attacks or anything like that. So that was, that's when I think God got a hold of me. So I think what I had was a 180 that night.
So did you physically wake up? And
yeah. So I couldn't breathe, and I basically rolled out of bed and had a panic attack. For somebody that doesn't know anything about a panic attack, that's why it was so rare. And basically no one spoke to me I was moved. I felt like I was shook awake, let's say, and to hit a wall, yeah, so to speak. I mean, I finally, basically, what we had right there was surrender, as I surrendered, and that's what I couldn't do before. Whether it was because I taught myself to shoot as a kid, or all these self-made things, and when I wanted God or a walk with Him on my terms, that wasn't going to happen. And when you are, when you either get spun around, choked out by God, or what you want to put in category, or when you get that connection, you'll never forget that feeling afterwards. Or I didn't. And one thing is I had a few enemies in the livestock business and in the board type stuff, minor stuff, but you brush, and I called them, apologized. I had an issue or two with a friend, and it was just on my heart just to change. And as far as the marriage went, I spent a little over a year trying to reconcile, and I thought that was my carrot, because when we woke up, I said, I can be a better man. That's basically what I said. God didn't speak to me, and I didn't see anything, but I was sure gotten hold of.
You said that the environment changed. I remember you mentioned like your awareness was different, right?
Yeah, I think
Explain
so.
that a
And
little bit
I'm blushing because
you are blushing.
I am blushing because it's. I almost think that when we surrender all of the bad and stuff that we carry around in our heart sheds a whole bunch. I just think that I could drive by on a road and I could smell lilacs going 60 miles an hour, and I could do that all day long. And then at some point that kind of went away, but I could smell. I'm not kidding you. I could probably smell the flower behind this house if I got in that position. And I think it's just maybe, it's somebody's gonna say, oh, it isn't some supernatural, superhuman thing. I think it's just when we let go of everything. I think it's that surrender.
Was there you coming to some understanding that you had to get redeemed or born again in any way, or was it
So
just...
I didn't ask or pray for it.
Boom.
I think it was boom for me.
Okay.
But I think I was getting harder and harder to live with myself. And, and I don't know if my subconscious knew that or something. But I really think the cause and effect was that I remember feeling smug when she said, okay, fine, you got the divorce. It's enough. If that's what'll make you happy, you got it. And that whole afternoon, I was smiling to myself thinking, yeah, but it was it was like something that we did or that we created or did something. It's going to happen this way, that way, and I can do this and that to surrendering. And after that, it's still, your heart is light, but it's scary as heck because you're not in control anymore, and you finally realize it. You realize it. And I was telling you off camera that I think that I thought the goal was to reconcile the marriage. It wasn't. No one's fault. It wasn't. That wasn't the path. But I'll say this for men and leave the women out of it. But I think we need a carrot. If I would have just woke up saved and smelling and calling people, and you still have to have a direction. And for me, I thought reconciling was it. It wasn't, but then I backed up to the original thing. I said that I can be a better man than this.
And that acknowledgement of humility, right? Like
Sure.
To reverse course completely and go from being smug and like,
Sure.
hey, I'm getting out of this, to be like,
Yep.
I should take responsibility for what I've done to it and try to fix it. And even if it didn't resolve itself, at least you knew that you were humble.
Sure.
And you were addressing what you thought was your biggest issue. In the conversation, I want to talk about 3 key points in what I believe to be Christianity, especially in being born again. But one of the things that was very, very difficult for me to realize, and it's not been something that I could ever conceive of, and this is the number one thing, is that we as Christians are not choosing to be Christians and follow God. when we are born again, it's God choosing us. Like, we don't have anything to do with it. We are now God's chosen people. And that relationship is just, it's something that you can't even understand until you're part of it. But it really is what differentiates Christianity from any other religion. You are chosen by God. And this is what exactly you're describing here. What we believe now that we're born again is that God chooses us. Therefore, it's not the works that we need to do.
Sure.
We're not trying to earn God's love. God just loves us. God has given us his grace and we live in it. But of course, our responsibility is to see where we're not in grace, right?
Sure.
Where we're falling away from it. And that is painful. It's like, you don't want to be there. You want to be back in the grace.
Sure.
But that's the struggle that you have to go through, is how do you bring yourself back in? And that's your sinful side, right?
It is. I, like I said, with the friends that don't know quite where to put me.
Yeah.
And it isn't a matter of putting somebody anyway. And I would urge everyone to get in touch, to have some kind of faith and to start. And I know some people, what church do you go to? Like it's a defined thing. Well, it doesn't spill over into denominations.
Well, and this is why, Kiley, that I wanted to talk to you about faith, because you and I are the same in that area. We're both not Bible thumpers. We're born again. We understand what that means, but we're not necessarily, we're rogue Christians.
Sure, there you go.
And there's really a lot more of those out there, and I think maybe we have enough of an understanding of Christianity that we can blend the word and, you know, the Christian faith with our experience. But the experience that you go through, as you've described, is so dramatic that there's just no way you can go back. And it doesn't happen because you will it. It happens because it happens, right? Sure. It's just a sea change in your life. So yeah, you can absolutely talk about how much of a rebel you are. Like, you're not the standard torchbearer for born again by any means.
Sure.
But that's why you've been so good for me, because I tend to want to lean on like the rules of how to behave as a Christian. And you've seen me in these moments when I'm just like, I am lost at sea. And you're the only person that can, I feel, really get at me as the person that I was without judgment. Like, you don't say, oh, now you need to be, you know, you're born again, get up and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You're just there, like, understanding and kind, and I don't have to set any expectation when I talk to you.
And I used to think too, when I was when I was searching, when I would put in a little more effort and going to church, and then you still feel lost because I'm not getting it. Now I'm smart enough to get it, and I can read words and I can understand, but I wasn't having this connection. And then I think we get, essentially frustrated. And I think sometimes when people, oh, well, you're born again, they're kind of looking for this response from me of preaching to them or something. And that's what paints Christians in a corner sometimes. That somebody's had one of the worst ones that did Bible thump to them or tell them they aren't doing it right. That's the biggest thing, is to be not judgy.
That's right.
Or that they run into someone that set a very bad example. Of all the characters in the Bible, Jordan Peterson picked up on this, said that God said David is a man after his own heart. And just a quick little thing, so David slew Goliath, he was chosen, and he built the temple and messed up. And then he became king and lusted and committed a roundabout murder with Bathsheba's husband.
Yes.
All the people in the Bible, God says, David is a man after my own heart. And it stood out. I didn't have the answer. Jordan Peterson gave the answer to me anyway through watching this thing. Do you know why?
No.
Because as many times as he's failed God, he still repents and surrenders again to God. And I think that says, to me, that says more. It's not about living some pure thing, because if we start doing that, that gets too much like Old Testament, that we're trying to be legalistic.
Right.
And if we
right,
do this,
exactly.
and if we do that, then this, and then
through
this.
our works, we know God.
And I think it's as simple as that, why he said that about David. And there's more times in there that he did that. But he's probably, maybe not the biggest mess up in the Bible, but he's sure, he was chosen several times, and almost as many times he messed it up. But he repented.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kiley, because that to me is the biggest problem with the Christian faith as people know it from the outside. So one of the things in doing research for this podcast that I found was that there's less and less Christians in the United States, and they're not going to other religions. They're becoming this disaffected group. So in 1990, there was about 6% of the population was disaffected. Today, it's 23%. And I see what is happening with young people. I mean, we can look at, some of the folks, the disaffected folks, by and large, are Democrats, liberals in cities. That obviously we all see that what's happening to these folks. They're disaffected, and they're being drawn into something that appeals to their selfishness and supports them and coddles their way of thinking, but they're growing further and further away from Christianity. But the truth of the matter is, those are the people that we need to be reaching towards.
Sure.
That's the group of people that Jesus actively was going to talk to, right? It was the sinners that he was calling to repent. And within ourselves, we have to see that we are sinners, and we are humble, and not, preachy, not, smack people upside the head if they don't do what God expects them to do, because we all are paying the price for that. And you're right, David paid the price and repented, and he was back within the grace of God. And shoot, that's what we should be doing every day, just like exercise.
Sure. And I think and I don't, of course, pray as much as I should, and all the things we know what we're not keeping up in our homework and things. But I honestly, I think that to somebody listening to this or watching that feels like they want some kind of walk with Christ, is that it's not, don't worry that it's a whole bunch of things. It's a personal, just that personal connection.
A message from somebody like us that's just raw, simple, has had a supernatural experience, but isn't trying to convert people in a way that they're used to sort of watching out for, but that it's just this relationship that God establishes with you for whatever reason. And I want you to talk more about how you feel in that relationship, not on the day-to-day, but just what is that feeling of being in God's grace feel like to you?
I almost say that I don't think God's ever spoken to me, or that I've not been still enough to hear, but something will happen, and then that's my conviction. Or something will, I'll see something like that. And another thing, I tell you what, maybe I should try again, but I don't pray for myself much. I pray for, to be calm, to be just the basic things, and to not be, or if I'm angry or mad or something like that, I'll kind of pray that away. I don't pray for a new job or a successful financial year. And I might have done it a few times, and then when I didn't see the results early on, I might have thought, no, if I'm not doing it right. But mostly I pray for other people if someone's going through a bad thing or something like that. And that's where things will get, not because of my prayer. I'm trying to lay this out so somebody doesn't feel pushed away from it.
You don't pray for yourself for specifics, and I'm the same way. I feel like that's somewhat selfish to do that. I think God works in much more generalistic terms anyway. Like, I'm praying for direction in how to think about something or how to take the next step, and then God will respond with like, you need to focus on home or you need to focus on something. And I do understand that that's God directed. But talk to me a little bit more about you praying for somebody else. One of the things that I've heard a lot about is Christians, non-Christians, or maybe non-born again, I don't know. That's something.
Non-believers.
Non-believers can't pray for themselves. Is that what you've heard?
Well, I've never put that much thought into it. It would, I guess I don't do it. Because I might have been early on. I think I bet you that right afterwards I said, I pray for my marriage to be restored. Well, it's not a magic wand. It's not and things happening. But so and most time I will pray for friends or somebody, and they won't know it. I don't say I'm praying for you. I think maybe in my position and who I am, and people still they might act funny around me if they're not quite believers. But one thing I'll tell you, and this, I'm not answering your question right away. The worst thing that I had to go through when I was going to church before, about a year before, and really seeking the faith, is when a minister or any part of Scripture tells you to spread the gospel and to spread the word and bring others to Christ. I would be sitting there praying and saying, accept that, God. I'm not.
You didn't want to do
I'll make
that.
up somewhere else. Because I had an image, Melissa, of the worst case deal knocking on people's door, and I thought, boy, I can't do that, and I probably still can't do that. But there's been ways and I still probably can't. Like if you just said, okay, Kylie, here's 10 houses, knock on the door. And maybe I could muster up enough, but I think but there's been things, and shortly after that, I was a kid I was working with and was going through, and I still felt so soft and so weak as born again that I was not going to go pound on doors. I still had so much internal work to do with myself, just like you mentioned earlier, lots going on, a lot of remodels going on. And I was working with a kid, and he was kind of complaining every day how his marriage was on the rocks, and I didn't have much advice to cancel. Look at me. I'm just 3 months into begging and getting the divorce I was wanting until that night. And so he was kind of laying it out there and what to do. And I was by far nobody to say anything. And all I could say was, well, if this was just a shot, is maybe go to church. I didn't have any more beyond that. That's just maybe go to church. And he said, well, my wife doesn't really believe, and I don't know what I believe. And I said, well, that's my advice, is go to church. And I didn't have anything. And I forgot about it, and maybe a couple months later, I happened to be back in Nebraska, and a kid called me, and he said, thank you for telling me to go to church. My wife and I aren't, we're not really getting along any better, but I started going, and I made friends there. That's the gospel. It doesn't have to be, and so that was my little thing back to see, you can do, and you can act, and you can lead. And I think for me, it's a lot more in subtle ways. But that's where, we need subtle ones too. Because if you come off too strong and get everybody's business, they're usually just going to pull back.
So there's another stat that I found, which I found to be incredibly shocking. It said that 70% of born-again Christians believe that there's more than one way to heaven. And the reason I bring that up in what you just said was that gets them off the hook from trying to bring other people into the faith, evangelizing anybody. And I'm not going to say that I am not without my concerns around evangelism too, because like you said, the idea of like kind of door-to-door salesman, and that, you become kind of blinders on, all in the faith, without any blemish, and that sense of purity and or lack of sin is suspect in anybody. Like,
Sure.
human beings are sinners, right?
Sure.
But I think too that the problem with that idea that, born agains can think there's other ways to heaven, is that that's pluralism. That is something that has been introduced as part of a method of disaffection. And I don't think I would have ever imagined that I would say this. But I truly believe that there is only one way to heaven, because of my understanding now of the relationship between Jesus and God in a way that I really never understood before being a born again. But that God brought his son to this earth as an instrument of assuming our guilt, assuming our sin, and then letting him be butchered.
Sure.
That is just, there is no other example of that grace. And I mean, what do we call that? That's sacrifice.
Sure.
In the most graphic and substantial means possible. So to me, there is no other way. There is no other path. And like, I don't know, maybe you disagree with that, but knowing what I know now, I couldn't ever imagine that you can get to heaven as a Buddhist or just, a Muslim or any other path. And I don't mean that to, separate myself from other people. But if I go back to the original point that I was making, that we are chosen by God. If we are chosen by God, we are chosen to be within this faith. And that is singular. It is not a pluralism mentality.
The only way to the Father.
It's the only way to the Father.
Sure.
And to know that relationship, like, there is nothing like it on this earth. If we go back to what you said about being able to smell flowers, the supernatural experience, I know I've had a taste of that, and you just can't ever go back. Like, it's just singular.
It's more and more proof to me that it's made by design. World's made by design, by a designer, not by nothing.
There's I don't remember his name, but there was a Chinese scientist who was studying the eye, the human eye. And through the process of his studies, he determined that there is no way that the eye could have been created
Sure.
without a creator. And that's basically, to me, in the simplest form, it's the question of whether we evolved through randomness and the impact of our environment, or if there was a creator and we were created by design. And fundamentally, the eye, livestock, I mean, I look
Sure.
around and I see how much God touches our life. And we are very lucky to be able to live in areas where it is more than man-made. I mean, when you're in the city now, you're almost entirely within a bubble of a man-made universe. Whereas when you come out here, you have to face the reality that when it's cold outside, you have to put a jacket on, and you might still be cold. Or you get a chance to note how the birds behave, or
Sure.
How even when animals know that there's an earthquake coming, how they
Sure.
behave. So the by design, by a definitive creator, is really, I mean, it goes back to this understanding the character of God. Like, yes,
Sure.
of course, absolutely, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, if we all descended from the cell or the amoeba or the monkey, then why did the monkey stay? I mean, there's a lot
Right,
of things
yeah,
that you just... And I think the old me, think the old me, and I'll put this out there, and there might be somebody watching this segment that says, "Well, yeah, I do believe that. So how do we sort this stuff?" And if you let go, like you don't like you just because you read something in a book that something's 160 million years old, and that you, but I think the old me also needed all the answers.
Right,
So if there's answers here, and this guy says this is the answer, then I'm with him. Or it makes my faith harder.
Yeah.
Because this is the answers. And part of being faith and surrender is letting go, and you're not in control, and you don't need the answers.
So let me dig into that with you a little bit more. So I think, so if we go back to 1990 as that reference point of 6% of the population were the unaffiliated and unaffected, to be quite honest, with religion. You know, they were kind of the scientists and the geeks and the agnostics and so forth, atheists. The world that they lived in has been the world that since 1990, really, I think in particular, the dramatic increase in that percentage of the population really has to point back to that 1990, early 90s timeframe. As something happened, that there was a catalyst, and I've seen, theories on it, like the end of the Cold War, the Republican and the conservative Christians joined hands, 9/11, and I really thought hard on it, and I have come up with the following. The internet really kicked off. Social media started, we're emailing each other, we're learning things, we have access to all knowledge all the time. 9/11 to me was an important pivotal point for two reasons. Number one, because we all went whole hog into patriotism in 9/11, and then almost as soon as we got there, the Islamophobia messaging started. So it's like we're all over here going, yay, great country that we live in. And then whoosh, like immediately we were shamed into, we're Islamophobics, the negative impact, the negative shift back at us, which was really intended to debunk our patriotism, right? To remove that from us. We sent a bunch of people to war, a senseless war that to me was justified only by the character of our president and his cabal of liars. And then I think the final thing is that the experiment that was the government sort of cover up really went online. So I know this sounds like I'm a total conspiracy theorist. With I'm not. But no, Bush won. Bush won was the director of the CIA. And I really think that Bush 1 started what we now live in today, this kind of what quote unquote deep state. Now we're calling it the Matrix. There's all these terms for this world that we live in. But the thing that the point that I'm trying to make is the Matrix, the deep state, the world that we live in. That's the definition of the unaffected, agnostic, non-Christian world. What is your God-filled world look like, Kiley?
No, that's a very good question, and I probably won't paint some great landscape. So I don't listen to the news too much, and when people ask me, I'm kind of behind. Sadly, some of it's social media. If I get on there and I see something that's been posted. But I think what's non-affected to me, and then these is that there'll be a project come along or someone come along that needs my help. And my help isn't like a great, I wouldn't qualify as a philanthropist, and I wouldn't, I can't whip out a bunch of scripture for you and stuff like that. But, and by the way, I didn't know when you said that I was flattered when you said that I was a bit of a mentor to you, because I didn't never think that much, but maybe that's just why I don't think of it.
Well, I mean, look at what happened. Like we got to know each other, and I'm having this like crisis of, I wouldn't even call it a crisis of faith. I was just scared. Like I went into this state that I wasn't even aware of, familiar with, and you were there. You were the one. We sat in your kitchen drinking coffee, and you just talked to me, and it was so. Yeah, I mean that fits the description of what you.
Sure. So the world of not having being in the matrix is, I suppose, the day to day, and then there's constant reminders that you'll see maybe things in the livestock or something. But I'll see things maybe in nature with livestock, and then I mean, it's pretty clinical actually that why I'm reminded that it's by design. What's my biggest takeaway from being saved as far as where I'm at today? Like from all the things that needed to happen, and the range of emotion and the change of behavior, and all the things that we needed to kind of get Kylie a little housekeeping on. My biggest thing now is my peace, is having peace, having some peace. It's not, I don't want anybody, it's not like I'm just a total into some inertia state, but and that's kind of my center.
Do you think that your old self would appreciate that peace?
I think he would have
run from
been
it.
Bored from it, waste of time.
I'm the same way.
Not getting anything done. But it's a a state of mind too, and it's I can, and I've got a pretty good appetite for problem solving and getting into situations, and then there'll be a gauge or barometer thinking, no, this is interrupting that a little bit. So
I think the thing for me in peace that has truly been a blessing is the self-sabotage. I recognize it now, and the ability to create boundaries. Like, I'm much more regulated than I used to be, and I attribute that to God's relationship with me has helped me mature in ways that I never thought I even needed. Sure. I can do self-reflection now and say how much I've grown and how appreciative I am of that. And then I look out at my relationships and my friends, and I feel for them. I feel so much sympathy, not even empathy, but I feel
Sure.
sympathy for people that are still in this matrix thinking, that the day-to-day is reality. You shape your own reality. You go into that, and it's not rigid. It's shaping around you, and if you bring it with anger and vindictiveness or drama or whatever, you're going to get it back. Like, whatever you push into
Sure.
comes back at you tenfold, and you think that that's reality, and it's so not. It's like, stop pushing into it.
Years ago, and right after the time of my surrender, and you just feel like the smells and you're born again. I mean, that's just what that is, actually, probably. As far as my feeling, it was hard to describe, but it was on. Is that you think, or I told you, I thought, boy, it's just going to be upward and onward from here on out, and I'm just going to float. And then we'll have a bad day. But the difference is we don't fall as far as we did after that. And then there'll be, and I'll tell anybody that seeks this, that there'll be bad days again. It's just not White Christmas. But we don't have to start back in the basement again. We don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
And we can pick ourselves up, and we've got tools to, and prayer and things to get us kind of lined up. But I was going to tell you this. So that being said, after I went back to reconcile, and that didn't go very smooth for a long time. That wasn't received. It wasn't as great as a story on the other end as it sounds right here today. And I really struggled, and of course there's emotions in there. But the one thing that I wasn't healing back from very good on this surrender was my guilt. And then for some reason everything flashed of every bad thing that I've ever done or said to somebody, or said something mean with intent. And so I stayed in this state for several months that I wouldn't forgive myself. You know, I just was like, oh, and then there's that. I'd think of some other thing. And I counseled with a friend of mine in Ravenna, and it was a born again Christian. And I said, Jerry, I said, do we got time to meet? I'm coming through town. And I told him, I dumped it all out on the table, like I can't forgive myself. And he goes, he said, you care if I bring Barb? She was born again, his wife. And I said, no, I mean, I need all the help I can get. And she, you know, they were probably in their 70s, and she just sat there, because we met in the back of a little motel where it's open, and we just sat down and had you know, room to talk. And she just sat there, and I'm you know, and I'd give him the story about how I wanted the divorce, and then the awakening, and all the good things have been coming with it. But I said, I just can't forgive myself. I just can't. I'll think of another thing. I'll dig up another instance where I was mean or said something mean to somebody at some point in my life. And Barb's just sitting there, and she's not very soft, and I can tell this, but I'm just, because what am I doing? I'm in a position of how bad I feel, and how do I forgive myself? And all she said to me was this. She sat there listening for a long time, and she said, do you think you're better than Jesus? Like, she was about miffed. And I said, no, like, this lady hasn't been hearing me, right? If she was really listening to me, I did not say I was better than Jesus. And she said, do you think you're better than Jesus? And I said, no, absolutely not. And she said, if Jesus has forgiven you, but you can't forgive yourself, she said, then you must be thinking you know something he doesn't. I said, no. And then but we have that reminder. There's a reminder. And back to your self-sabotage, and that's all it took. You know, once somebody reminded you and set you on, and that's what counseling can do. Not counseling like pay somebody $50 an hour, but I mean counsel with another Christian once in a while, and for you to call me. And I think I remember when things were getting better, I run across something. I called you and I said, hey, this is. Did you notice this? But that's all good to do amongst things. But bringing up Barb, is when she left me with a prayer, and anybody out there can use this. And I'm not a real enemy type guy. I'm not a real devil type guy.
No, I'm not either.
I run across too many people that says, you know, well, this happened and the enemy was doing it. You're giving too much credit to the enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, God is in our heart, and then we're not oblivious to it, but we walk with the Lord. We don't worry about the devil up ahead in the bush, you know. I don't think we should. That's not how so I'm not a big demon devil type guy, but Barb gave me this in one kind of a neat outline for a prayer. And she said, whatever you're feeling, and the prayer goes something like this, dear Father, I'm feeling these thoughts of jealousy, fill in whatever we need to do, anger, lust, whatever that we're doing, and recognize that, Lord, these are not of you. These are things put into our broken world. All these things. So it can be the media and stuff like that. And then, so the prayer goes that anger and jealousy, and I'm feeling betrayal. And I know these things are not of you, Lord, and these are demons within me. So cast them out and replace the absence of them with Jesus' heart. And I thought that
remember you telling me that.
And I was I thought, boy, I don't really, about demons. I don't go down there too much or worry about it. And then, but it's just a simple prayer, almost like a child's prayer, that we can, if one thing we can do is that we can identify with what emotions we're having trouble with. So if it's anger, if it's a jealousy, if it's a fear, and you just kind of basically put a name tag on them with that simple little prayer and those are not of or from the Lord. Those aren't created by the Lord. Those are created with man in our mind, in our free will. So once we kind of assess them, put a name tag on them, and then excuse them,
I remember that.
Yeah, at the time it was a kind of a, not an odd dream, but I thought, okay, well, and I tried it and I thought, because this will make you hit the brakes and think, what am I feeling right now? I'm really mad. Why am I mad? I'm mad because my neighbor, and then you can kind of sort that thing and let it go.
I remember talking to you and you giving me that advice, and I was driving and I got off the phone with you and I started doing exactly that, repeating that, and it took me about 5 minutes, and it just seemed like whatever was locked up in my head just broke free, and I felt so much better. I mean, I think I shed tears of gratitude that I was like free of it, because it felt like I was in like being constricted, like a boa constrictor around me, and I couldn't escape it. And then it was like being able to acknowledge what was going on with me was that first step. The other thing that I want to mention while I'm thinking about the locked, one of the biggest things I found for myself personally is that I get stuck in a place. The record skips and it keeps putting you back in that same groove. And God has specifically said to me at times, go do this. And and one of the things that I hear from him often is to go do a menial task. Like, I've been told to go rake leaves. And literally, I was told to rake leaves on a windy day. And it's like going out and doing something totally futile, but it's physical, and understanding that sometimes you just have to burn the flesh in order to get through whatever it is going on in your head. And the same thing happened. It was like 15 minutes in, I'm out there raking leaves, pissed off, don't understand what I'm doing out there. But then suddenly it was just like the stranglehold that was on my mind just ended. And I felt so grateful. I felt so grateful that something so simple could put me out of my misery. In the same way that just appealing to God for help, it puts you out of your misery.
I'm just for how many times in Scripture does it talk about work? And like with your raking the leaves and doing that menial task. And there's, I don't know how many references there must be in there about your toil and your work and your duty and to work hard. And I think that's pulling you back to, I can't say, I'm just guessing, but whatever kerfuffle you were in and was all going on in your head, and whichever you're worked up about. And then if he told you to rake leaves, then you're doing it there, and then it pops. Because your strength of mind is breathing life into that.
The humility, like it's almost not. It's not just being humble. It's like it's almost being a humiliation put on me, that I have to realize that I feel humiliated, and then go, "What the hell? I shouldn't feel humiliated."
No, but I think
I should feel that I'm honoring God by doing what He's asking me to do.
I think but you're getting humble, you're getting soft, is what it is. And that humility is not the humility that I would see. That's the humility that you would feel inside of yourself.
There's a couple more points I want to make. The first one is the nature of our relationship to God and how love factors in. So my theory in this regard is that we can't really understand the character of God until we have made sacrifices, until we've been humbled, or we've forgiven, or we've done something huge for us. And I want to use this example because I think it's so beautiful. And, we recently had the Charlie Kirk assassination, and we had the memorial service for him. And during that memorial service, Erica Kirk got up there and told the world that she forgave the murderer of her husband. And I mean, the breath went out of me. I knew when it was coming, what she was about to say. And yet that level of sacrifice is just, it's only something you can get if you are a true Christian.
Sure.
Like that is the sign. You see that in somebody, you know that they've had to take the full factor into account before they've made that commitment. And yet I read something after the fact that said that she didn't want that assassin to be on her ledger. And I understand exactly what she meant by that. She
Sure.
wanted to free herself of that bondage, right? Mm-hmm. But if you look at your life and say, what have I done in sacrifice? Where have I been selfless? Or do I live a fully selfish life? That's really the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian, right?
Sure.
And only that brings you to understanding the nature of how God loves us, right? I mean, I know just a little bit about God's love, but it is beautiful. It is beautiful. So talk to me about your thoughts on God's love, how you bring about that in your life.
I don't know if I seek God's love like praise. I feel there will be something in front of me, a task, somebody with a problem, something that needs help with a friend or someone I know, and I think, send me, send this, step up. I don't know, so maybe it's my own.
Send me, huh?
Send me.
Here am I. Send me.
Yeah, here am I.
Isaiah.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I gained in my surrender was, and it like snuck up on me 30 days later or something, that I let regret go and didn't even know it. And because maybe things were going so fast and I'm calling and apologizing and meanwhile trying to reconcile and do this. And I've put on a lot of miles to a lot of sale barns, and I've hauled stuff into plants all night long. I've driven lots. And one of my pastimes for driving my whole life was replaying things through my head. And it might be as simple as to say, man, I should have bought that set of cows one time, or man, I shouldn't have sold that horse, or man, I shouldn't have stopped talking to this gal, or it didn't matter. I mean, pick whatever thing, and I regretted it. And I would play it through my head and think, oh, I bet if I wouldn't have done that, then this one, such a waste of time. It's water under the bridge. And that was like, it's just almost a hobby to regret things and replay them all the time, over and over. And that gets you nowhere, by the way. And one day after I was saved, I thought of something, and I thought, and then I thought, I haven't thought for 1 minute about, oh man, now,
shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Did all my memory, I didn't lose memory out of the deal, but it's already dealt with type thing. You know what I feel bad for, or my friends, I don't want to say I feel bad like I pity them. When I have friends not getting through something, like it's, maybe they're even doing a little counseling, or maybe they're, and we all have friends like that, and everybody here viewing is going to have a friend going through something. And they're so close. If they would just yield, surrender, and if you could let Jesus take some of that off of you. But you're going to push them away if you push it too hard.
Yeah.
And that's how I pray for a lot of friends, because they're so close. And I think just like the regret thing and playing the some of that stuff just went away in the package that I never was. It comes with the territory. It comes with the new job, right? Comes with the new job. They're just perks in there, and regret was the one of them. Now, if I think back of something, think, man, I wish I'd have done that different, but I don't stay there, and I automatically, immediately know that unless we have a time machine, it doesn't bear fretting. It doesn't bear the worry.
So at the beginning of the conversation, you spoke about like you grew up driving truck, and you were your own self-made man or self-made man
people
child.
counting on me, sure.
How does that factor in now, based on what you just said? I would assume very differently.
It gets in my road sometimes, and I'm gonna roll my sleeves up in there and get in there like that. Now, there's also something that come with that on the new me, is that I'm not. I know how to structure, and I know how to organize, or I know how to do those things, but I don't do them all for my benefit or something like that. I can't.
So your competency, you've retained your competency without your ego.
Sure. Yeah. I think sometimes, and you might have asked me this before, that what do you want to do next? And then I'm someplace when in losing myself, and nobody take this the wrong way. You didn't lose memory. You didn't lose some of the old drive to me, but it was I'm gonna see about doing this. I'm gonna set out and do it. And then when I had to become humble, or to become to surrender, some of that old stuff kind of like I don't. I'm kind of looking for, not that I'm lost, but you kind of wait and see what maybe God wants me to do next. And to someone that can control, that's used to controlling things, that can be a pretty uneasy feeling. It's not scary. We just know that we have to let loose once in a while.
I completely agree with that. That is one of the things that's been hardest for me, because I was, you know the 16 personalities, the ENTP,
sure,
all those. So I tested myself, and I was always the same thing. Always the same thing. And it was the driver. Like, I was a driver. I was ambitious. I was always about the win, and, what boxes could I check? And I recently retested myself, and I was not the same personality at all. I've completely changed. And it's like, the craziest thing about this, Kylie, was it was like, oh my gosh, this is who I was all along.
Sure.
But I was so convinced of who I was, but that person really never existed. It was just a self-made model of who I wanted to be.
Projection.
Yeah,
it was
I filled those shoes really, really well. But I am so glad that isn't who I am anymore. Sure. Because who I am now is the true, authentic me. And it's such a relief. It's just such a relief to not have that bear that burden of responsibility of being somebody I'm not anymore.
Sure. No, that's very well put. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about one more very particular thing on the branching off on the idea of love. We're both single. Mm-hmm. And we have both probably had to deal with the fact that we're Christian and single, and that narrows the field quite a bit. And you're male, I'm female. What is your kind of impression of, not so much the dating life, that seems to be an over discussed part of our world today, but how do you as a Christian man operate within the universe, and what do you think of women, Christian women in the world, or even if you were thinking, I need to be with a female that's Christian or not? I mean, I don't. What is your thought about women now that you're saved? It's the short question.
No, and I told you earlier that I was always looking forward to retirement. I just can't financially, and I'm not old enough. And I told you I was glad to retire from sheep after about 40 years. Hopefully I can retire from women here the next thing. Now I'm making a joke. If you just retire from it, I'm just retired.
Oh my God.
People, I'm retired.
You want to retire from women? And are you retiring from dating, or are you retiring from women altogether?
So what's my opinion of Christian women?
Or just like dating, like how do you date now that you're born again? What do you do?
Not really anything. And I'm seeing someone now. And this is going to sound crazy. I'm going to take you down a dark trail here to come back up with where I'm going with that. So maybe at some point that I set out to say after I was saved, I need to date Christians, because you cannot, if you're not yoked, If you're both not yoked, I've got to date a Christian.
Yeah.
Because I can't date a non-believer because we're just going to be on two different spectrums.
Unevenly yoked. Yeah.
But then when I looked into dating like in a Christian site or something like that, there's things that were like, oh my gosh, this is like someone that I used to know that wasn't a very good Christian because they were a better Christian than me, and I'm a better Christian.
How do you get the Christian meter figured out?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, that's her version of Christian, but it's not mine. So this is almost more of a process to sort through the Christians. And the person I'm seeing now, it's new. There's
an element. Evenly yoked, or can we even ask that question?
Yeah, evenly yoked. So
good.
I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I don't. So we're not getting married. So it's not like where we're at. This is just a few weeks into this thing. Is that I've caught myself. I don't say, do you believe? Do you? Well, what about this? I don't have to give her the Christian 101 quiz because it's not up to me. And there are a lot of things in her heart that seem like it, but it's for a minute I caught myself. Well, do you, like I'm going to give her an interview on where she's at on her faith and her walk, and now she's shared some things that some questions, not big doubts, and I still have to always stop and think. It's our walk with the Lord, and it's not where anyone else is at in their walk yet.
I ask you that, and I'm very grateful to hear your answer, because I think that is the thing that is the hardest for me of all. So, I have never had a Christian boyfriend ever. The idea of being yoked to somebody has just scared the living daylights out of me. I don't even... I've always been an independent woman, and I'm sure that part of the reason why I'm single is because
let me tell you, I said I'm not very good to quote scripture or anything, but let me define my version of what the evenly yoked thing means. I don't think it means that you're yoked to someone pulling the plow. Yeah, you're going to have to pull the plow. It takes a lot of work. The couples take a lot of work. Evenly yoked means to me that you're not pulling more than the other person.
Okay.
It's not, I wouldn't look as yoke as a term of like a shackle, but a yoke is the thing that two people have to do together. And if someone's pushing harder, and if you're pushing harder, and this other person is a lazy Christian and just says, oh yeah, sure, I'll even go to church with you once in a while. But when you have to do the struggles and the trials and the things that we have to get through, if you're not evenly yoked, it means more to say that person is not pushing as hard as you to keep the balance of the
three-legged race.
Yes. So I would say that to you. So the yoke is that you want a good partner in that yoke that's going to do the work like you're going to do it.
Yeah, I think the other thing about it too is so there's the two factors. One is the yoking. The other is, the women's role in the biblical description is very different than the world that I've grown up in. And like I said, with the driver and, being able to realize that I'm not the person that I used to be, and I thank God for that, I'm starting to feel so much more like a woman. I think that has been, even though I'm single, it's been such a beautiful thing for me to embrace my femininity.
Sure.
Where I don't have to, I feel that it's much more my natural being than, and yet, my old self is always like yoking, committing to your man, being under your man for the sake of Jesus. Those are all things that scared me,
and a lot of times when you see some of them, quick do it, reference check and see if it's Old Testament or New Testament. because under Old Testament everything was legalistic and law. And so if it is New Testament, yeah.
I'm gonna go on a date. Are you Old Testament or
Well,
New
not no. If you see a statement, and oftentimes people that like to slander Christianity will say your God is a mean God because, and they dig something out from Old Testament.
Old Testament.
And of course with Jesus changing everything, taking away basically the death that was due us, and so on some of those things look to see, and because most of the time when they pick out something really extreme, it's Old Testament. And we don't live under them rules now. I mean, it was a big update 2.1, 4.0 or whatever. Jesus coming to the world, and then we've had an update as far as worrying about having a Christian boyfriend, because you said you hadn't had one, and you would probably seek to meet someone.
I guess.
I do this. Well, I know, but all in God's time too, though, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Not so much dating, but I'm like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening, and it's just like, well, that's me trying to get a hold of the wheel again. But so a lot of that stuff I've come to learn and let's even take a little bit of where women are today, and maybe not feminism, but that women that a woman today might have more rights than she did in even say the New Testament. But I think if you
get willing to be fighting for them,
if you look at it,
the context of
I think that there's more by a couple's design, a man and woman, that a man's got his duties and roles to protect and to provide and things like that. But wouldn't you say, even through Scripture, that a woman's got more love in her in the relationship than the man does? So that's giving her more credit. That's not I don't think it's like a subservient thing. And there's roles, as there should be, like on a company or anything. You can't have two presidents, and you don't have. But I think the woman's power in a man and wife situation has got more not duty, but there's more responsibilities, and there's more love and tenderness in that itself than that I don't think it puts the woman in a lesser light or anything.
I don't think it does either, and I think that's the thing that I've discovered is the way in which a Christian woman behaves is beautiful. I think it brings us more respect in ourselves.
Sure.
I think the feminist movement, the independent female scenario over the past several decades has really tried to cast women as needing to be just as strong, just as, dutiful, the pre-Christian me was very masculine in that I didn't emote. I was cold. And it wasn't that I was cold because I didn't have the feelings. It was what I had gotten used to doing. That was the person that I thought I was supposed to be.
Maybe a survival thing, just in a good...
And I love the idea. I feel more now, and obviously that's hard because you have to deal with the feelings and trying to discern them. But I feel too that I'm softer. You've brought that term up a couple times. Everybody's softer.
Sure.
Everybody. Not in a bad way.
No.
We're softer because we've given up trying to do everything. We don't have that pressure anymore.
Your walk with Jesus or faith or surrender is your own. And and don't ever let anybody say you're not doing it right. But that's what I would kind of tell everybody is that you're not going to be perfect. And it's just trying to live better and being a better human. And I guess that's who's been on my mind all day is who might be watching this that's on the edge of, but a lot of it's yourself that gets in the way.
Okay, two last questions for you. What would you like to do that you haven't yet done?
And I kind of already answered that.
Yeah,
I
you
think
kind of
that
have.
there isn't much.
There isn't much.
You know, maybe on just the practical thing, I wouldn't mind getting back into the sale barns.
Oh, okay.
I kind of miss the sale barns. And earlier
Managing the sale barn.
You know, I don't want to manage them anymore. I want to be, if I'm going to be back in a field rep or maybe in the ring or bring some cattle in, but I don't want to manage. That's going to affect my peace, right? You know, we're doing those jobs like that will probably cut into my peace, which is pretty precious. And you mentioned that you liked my shirt today. And this shirt's almost really not in the lineup anymore. But when I seen it, I thought, well, I'm going to wear it today in remembrance of my old friend Kenny Winterstein from Olivet, South Dakota, that's no longer with us. And Kenny always would comment with somebody with a bright shirt or a bright cap in the sale barn that he likes to see more bright colors. And so when I seen this shirt, I thought, well, I'm going to put it on and mention it to Kenny. Or mention it.
I like that.
Mention Kenny. Sure.
I like that.
And a lot of us, a lot of others in my life have come ahead of me, and they kind of looked out for me, encouraged me, and I kind of knew they wanted me to have a walk with the Lord or some faith.
All right, one last question for you. Who's your favorite singer, musician, song?
I listen to a lot of music all day long. I probably got 100 favorites. It's pretty hard to replace Will Whalen. But I go through stages, and right now I'm been listening to a lot of Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. So they're good, but I listen to all kinds of music. But there's these songs that are about 80, 90, 86% Christian in what their belief is, even though they're a pop country song or an old rock and roll song. And it's just got about everything there about in that song, maybe about having a change of heart or thinking about something more, even though it might have a gal's name in it or something. And I have to think that those songs are put there for strategy. It gets
Name
people.
One for me.
I'm In a Little While by U2. In a Little While, This Life Will Surely Change. In a Little while, something about His heart. So they're teetering on that there's something else out there. I should have had that list ready. And they'll be saying, I think there's more out there. I don't know what it is. I'm feeling a little lost. I wish I knew something. I think those things are all just there to lead somebody to soften their heart a little bit and say, what if? Or what if I said the prayer to let Jesus into my life? So so those are always humor me, and I always love finding another one. It's like finding an arrowhead or finding it. It's a discovery, and I have to think that song is not. You wouldn't just write a song like that. And was he trying to convert people? I don't know. We don't know what they were thinking when they're doing it. But I have to think that those are God put in a way. And somebody might be sitting in traffic one day and listen to the words all together wrong and think, I wonder if I'm by God's design. So that was a long answer, but you listen for those songs because they're out there and they're cool to find.
That's a fantastic way to end. And thank you so much for your time. It's been just a pleasure talking to you, Kiley.
Sure,
and
likewise.
I'm grateful to have you in my circle of friends, and especially in my born again circle, because you are one of a kind. And,
thank you. It's humbling.
And I thank you all for watching today. If you have questions, comments, please share, subscribe. Like this video, more will come of it as a result, and we can always come back and talk more with Kiley. His insight and his wisdom is just unparalleled, and so thank you. That's it from the Rogue Frontier.